Hello and welcome to the Emerging Tech Show, where we talk about tomorrow's technology today. My name is Sohan and I'm your host, and this is something new that I'm trying. So bear with me and do give me your feedback at the end of today's show. So today we're going to be talking about something called GPT-3 and honestly what the fuss is all about. If you haven't seen the show before, and I'm sure you haven't because this is literally the second episode and no one saw the first episode, it's all about discussing the future of technology and the latest news in emerging tech in a very non-serious sort of way. So hit me up with the comments about what you're thinking, what you're doing, and after each segment, I'll sort of get back to you and we'll see how it goes. First, a quick roundup of news in the world of emerging tech. This is a segment I like to call the peripheral, all right, and I have like a cool graphic right there. So this is a roundup of today's latest news. Well, firstly, the PS5 and the Xbox Series X just launched. I think eternally it answers the question, can it run Crysis? And the answer is yes. A resounding yes, it can run Crysis. Now, both are very, very cool looking gaming consoles. I'm of course PC master race, so I don't buy the latest in consoles. I do have an old PS3 which I sort of use. So this is very cutting edge hardware, in fact, and people are very excited about the launch. How typically computer powers and power of computer is measured is in something called a flop or a flops, which is floating point operations per second. Now, if you can do trillion, yes, that's right, trillion operations per second, it's a teraflop. And the Xbox Series X can actually do 12 teraflops, which is 12 trillion floating point operations in 1 second. And the PS5 can do 10.28 teraflops. Staggering numbers, of course. And honestly, the latest benchmarks have been out and a lot of reviews out, both of them saying the performance is very good. They're still waiting on games to really take full advantage of the amazing hardware that's in these boxes. In fact, PS5 they've really pushed the limit of immersive gaming, and they have something called a DualSense controller. Very, very cool concept. So the controller is not just like a joystick that all of us played on our Nintendo 64s. It really gives you an immersive experience when you're gaming. So for instance, there are varying levels of triggers that you can use. So you have to put maybe a little more force. You can also draw actions on the little controller there. So if you have to open like a zipper or a curtain, you can like draw it there. There are speakers in the DualSense controller which gives you sound effects. If like bugs go across the screen, you can actually feel it in your hands like something's moving across. So they're really taking this to the next level. Really excited about what these cutting edge consoles can bring. And of course, next time you're playing Call of Duty 5 or whatever and you're making fun of a teenage kid's mom, you can actually do it in 4K. Goes without saying. All right, so this is another roundup of the news that I really want to talk about, and very, very interesting story. So there was this lady named Dot Bustello who worked in Apple's Logic Pro team, the Logic Pro you use to do audio editing and video editing. And she basically she worked in this production room, and she looked at classic Hollywood and other movies that were playing in silent in the studio, which she used as inspiration or just as water cooler, as a conversation starter. And she hit upon this idea of having artwork that was live streamed within an app. So I think it was a couple of years ago, she launched this thing called Lupe, which was an app which basically streamed artwork 24/7. That's it. Pretty cool idea. Well, she actually took it a step further and she created a television channel out of this. And how they make money is they stream artwork of different genres, and what you see right here is the homepage of Lupe. So you can see things about nature, about fashion, animals, psychedelic, motion art, avant-garde, and all of that you can choose. And it basically just keeps streaming art the entire day, literally. And what they do is they take a cut if any of those art pieces are actually sold. So that's how they make money. So here's the cool part about the story. So she actually went ahead and she launched a TV channel on Pluto TV, and this was earlier this year, during pandemic, where we have literally nothing to do. I mean, y'all are watching me stream this, so yeah, joke's on you. And they've actually got 2 million viewers in just a matter of couple of months. And businesses, of course, like hotels and offices have bought this so that they can have cool looking artwork streaming on their televisions all day. I thought very innovative story and just something I could share with you all. I wanted to also talk to you about cars. This is about the future of tech, of course. Now, all of us at some point of time have been obsessed with fast cars. When you're a teenager, you can't get the real thing. You're looking at photos on the internet, you're looking at magazines, really wondering what the real thing will probably be like. You're sort of getting obsessed with it. It's getting with your studies. And well, I'm still talking about cars, by the way. And yes, this is the SSC Tuatara. Now, this was in the news for a very, very interesting story, so hear me out. Now, a few months ago, I think it was actually a couple of months ago, they had this press release where they said that they had actually built the fastest production car. And this is quite amazing because the earlier record belonged to Bugatti, the Bugatti Chiron, which is a really large company. And SSC is actually a fairly boutique, small manufacturer. So everyone's like, wow, pretty cool that you've actually built this car that's broken the record. For those of y'all who might be interested, the car averaged 316 miles per hour. I don't know how much that is in kilometers per hour, but whatever. And the car is named after this reptile that's found in New Zealand, which has the fastest evolving, no one cares. Anyway, this is about fast cars. So they actually came up with this car, 316 miles per hour. They launched the video. Everyone's like, wow, awesome, great job. Then the internet happened. So internet detectives all over Reddit and YouTube and Facebook actually looked at the video. They looked at other videos on the same track and they realized something was actually slightly fishy about this. People are still not seeing pics. There we go, hopefully. So they realized something was slightly fishy about this. And they actually compared, stuff from previous things in the same track. And they realized, they looked at the speedometer, they looked at the odometer and things like that. And turns out, there was something totally going wrong. So then very recently, the CEO of the company has come out and said that it was a video editing error, right? So they have actually apparently ran on the track. They did a test run on the track, took the wrong video, overlaid it, but they've actually broken the record. Now, I know this sounds super suspicious, but they've actually said that in the future that they will be running this again, this time with the proper video, not edited version. So we still don't know if this car has the world record for fastest car or not. Anyway, today's main segment is going to be about GPT-3. And before that, I have to give you this one poetry reading. So I'm going to read poetry now. So this is a poem called Elon Musk by Dr. Seuss. And I'm going to read it. Once there was a man who really was a Musk. He liked to build robots and rocket ships and such. He said, I'm building a car that's electric and cool. I'll bet it outsells those gasoline-burning clunkers soon. Okay, so keep that in mind. I'm also going to read this Reddit comment by a user called the Gentle Meter, right? And it's fairly heavy. I have been worrying about the possibility of an apocalyptic event, so a war or plague that could destroy all humans. But I only realized how unlikely that is when I saw that it is robots who are deciding the future of humanity. Now, you might be thinking, what is common to this random Reddit post with like 4 points karma? I have way more than that, the Gentle Meter, and this random Elon Musk poem by Dr. Seuss. Well, I sort of gave the answer out earlier, of course, but this is both generated by an AI called OpenAI GPT-3. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer, and this is the third generation of GPT-3. And it's created by this company based out of San Francisco called OpenAI. Now, this is a language model that actually uses deep learning to produce human-like text. Honestly, if you'd have looked at that poem and if you'd have looked at that Reddit comment, not too different from the sort of random Reddit comments we see in any way. And what it does basically, to really simplify it, is it's looked at thousands and millions of books, of Wikipedia, and of things online, including social media, to sort of be able to generate very human-like speech. My only question is, why look at social media, dude? I mean, honestly, I think at some point of time, GPT-3 is going to put up photos of banana bread that it's creating. Anyway, it's very difficult to distinguish text created by GPT-3 from that written by a human, which, has some benefits, but also a lot of risks. And we will be talking a bit about that. Interestingly, just in September, Microsoft announced that they had acquired the license to the source code. So people can still use the API of GPT-3 and create whatever they want, but the source code is exclusively owned by Microsoft. Honestly, if you want to check out some really weird and disjointed and slightly scary stuff, do check out /the gentle meter on Reddit. A whole bunch of comments generated and Ask Reddit posts which are very surreal. Now, this is fairly scary because GPT-3 has been used to generate, like I said, not just poems and Reddit comments, but also things like a movie. It actually wrote the script for a short film that was made into a film, which also included a twist ending, which I thought was pretty cool. But the thing is, it can do more than that. It can also answer things like trivia questions. So soon you will probably see a GPT-3 host a trivia quiz instead of me. It can pen poetry. It can summarize emails, something that we all need. It can translate languages and even write computer programs. I'm sure a few of you all active on Twitter saw this fairly viral post where this one dude actually described a web page he wanted to draw. So he wrote 2 light ray buttons that say search Google and I'm feeling lucky, and it actually generated the web page for him. And he in later on in the post he'd say stuff like generate a button that looks like a watermelon and just really random stuff like that, and it would actually do it, which is, I think, pretty cool. The reason why it's so effective is purely because of the data set. So this is a graph from a paper in 2020 by Brown, Mann et al. And essentially the predecessor, which was GPT-2, had 1.38 billion parameters in their learning model, 1.38 billion. And as you can see on the y-axis, the accuracy was about 60 to 70%, which honestly is not even close to that of a human. A human's is in the high 90s, for most humans at least, let's face it. But this particular GPT-3, the learning parameters are 175 billion. It's literally 150x the previous iteration. So the accuracy really has shot up. It's gone up to the high 80s, so it can actually give fairly accurate and human-like text, which is pretty cool. Now, this does have the potential to both be beneficial and have like very harmful applications of this particular language model. Nowadays things are rife, like social media is rife with misinformation and fake news, phishing scams, spam, also like abuse of legal and government policies, but also things like fraudulent essay writing and social engineering and so on. And honestly, with this level of realism, GPT-3 can really be misused. So there has to be some sort of regulation perhaps around it, or at least some sort of statutory warning before using it, so it doesn't really fall into the wrong hands. Although I, for one, welcome our new GPT-3 overlords. Those of you all who got that reference, kudos to you. Our clickbait engine, that is the media, has really sort of lapped this up. You'll see articles that say, is GPT-3 conscious? Does it have its own conscious? Or is AI finally closing in on human intelligence and so on? Is GPT-3 the big leap forward for AI? Well, honestly, here's where I really stop you from panicking. Articles like this I have seen a lot in the last few years. I actually worked for a company that did chatbots in 2015 and 2016, and honestly, we had the same type of articles back then. Chatbots are here to save your life, and will chatbots take over the world, etc. Everything is just designed to generate more clicks, honestly. So this is very, very good at text processing, let's face it, but outside of that, it doesn't do too much. Things like context and why it's saying what it's saying is still not part of what it can do. Or maybe it's faking it and actually Skynet is taking over. I don't know. Honestly, could be either one. But no, honestly, don't. There is no need to panic, and there's no need for extreme alarmist opinions about AI taking our jobs or AI taking over what we do. In fact, Yann LeCun, who is the chief scientist in the AI division in Facebook and is very, very well regarded in these circles, he in fact wrote this Facebook post about how GPT-3 is all hype, and he spoke about how the knowledge is shallow and disconnected from underlying reality, which honestly I sort of agree with, because at the end of the day, what GPT-3 is doing is essentially just very, very powerful text processing. Outside of that, it's not going to happen. For instance, if you ask GPT-3 what's the best band in the world, it will say Dave Matthews Band. If you say what's the worst band in the world, it might say Dave Matthews Band. Now, one of these statements is 100% true and the other is definitely not, but I'll leave you to figure out which one is which. In fact, there was also a post by Gary Marcus, who is a prof emeritus at New York University, has written some books on AI, who he was a little more outright. He said GPT-3 is a better bullshit artist than its predecessor, but it's still a bullshit artist. In fact, I do encourage you to check out the link that I put up. It's on MIT Tech Review. And I mean, you can see the screenshot right there by Gary Marcus. And it gives you examples of how it can generate text really well, but has no underlying context of what it's really saying. So TLDR, GPT-3 does really well in what it's supposed to do, which is generate text. Can be used in a lot of creative endeavors, actually, writing screenplays, writing television episodes, coming up with quizzes, because apparently I don't have the time for that, whatever. But it's not going to take over our jobs. It's not going to take over the world anytime soon. Anyway, so those were the first two segments. I always like to end with a final segment which takes a look at like something cool around from the internet. And I don't think it gets cooler than this. I think future episodes can't possibly top this. But some very, very cool but Slovak dude with a lot of time on his hands basically found a way to boot from a vinyl record. So essentially, computers have boot disks, right? You boot your system from your hard disk. Sometimes if you're reinstalling your OS, you get like a boot USB, you plug your USB in, boot from that. Well, this guy clearly has too much time on his hands. Oops. Essentially what he did was he got FreeDOS, which is an open source version of DOS, got it onto a vinyl disk, like a LP basically. And yeah, he hooked that up. He hooked his turntable to his PC, which was an old IBM PC. And yeah, he played the vinyl, which basically ran FreeDOS, and it worked. He was able to boot it. So go check out Bogin. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, boginjunior.com. He has a video of doing this as well, which is, I think, it's just the coolest thing ever. Into comments, Prashant saying, can it run Doom? Well, Prashant, actually, I was going to save this for a future episode, but someone's actually hacked Wolf on a scientific calculator, and I'm going to put that video up in one of our future episodes. So hopefully someone will be able to run Doom off of a vinyl. Who knows? You never know, right? People have way too much time on their hands nowadays. All right. Anyway, folks, this has been a lot of fun. Tune in next week for another episode at the same time. I'm doing it slightly later to be inclusive of US and India and Europe time zones, because I expect like millions of people to watch this, but not really. But anyway, thanks again for supporting this. This has been fun. I'll see you next week at the Emerging Tech Show. See you soon. Bye.